you asked me to talk about Horizon of Post-Growth, an exhibition by the collective Disnovation that is still being exhibited in the Arsenal Gallery in Bialystok, and that I curate with Ania Malinowska, my colleague from the University of Silesia. So I will start by shortly introducing the artists and comment on the exhibition, especially on its two elements. First, life support system and a post-growth toolkit. And in the second part of my talk, I will introduce the concept of territory that we've been working a lot with for the last 3 years in the Horizons 2020 project named Networking Ecologically Smart Territories. Both Disnovation and University of Silesia have been acting as partners in this project. This is how we met each other. So Disnovation or Disnovation was founded in 2012 by two artists, Maria Roszkowska and Nicolas Maigret. And the very name of this collective shows the rationale behind this exhibition and their works in general. What they want is to offer a critical voice about the cult of technological innovation and to disseminate radical counter-narratives. These narratives are not simply against innovating, they rather make us aware of how this word, this idea, innovation, can serve as a keyword to justify antisocial policies and the economic growth that does not take into account the environmental costs. So to disnovate means to liberate innovation from the propaganda of technological innovation and technological solutionism, that is a kind of an ideology based on a belief that technology, whether it is a machine, a software program, or algorithm, offers the best solution to any complicated problem. This exhibition actually shows that it is quite the opposite. If we do not situate technology in broader eco-social contexts, then every technology intensifies existing problems and creates new ones. Things get more complicated, more complex, and this complexity becomes a threat. So this exhibition wants to contribute to a larger societal discussion about the possibilities of a sustainable future and new economic models through a positive critique of technology. The Horizon of Post-Growth exhibition is an example of art-based research, that is a mode of inquiry in which the arts are used to understand human action and more specifically civilizational challenges related to the Anthropocene. When preparing this exhibition, the artists worked a lot with scientists. Their goal was not to merely illustrate how science works or to create narratives about science, but rather they wanted to work with science. They wanted to integrate scientists in the artistic research process. Here, science really shapes artistic research and the outputs of this research, you can see as the exhibition, are scientifically robust enough to be submitted to scientific scrutiny, so that scientists could take them seriously, use them to communicate with each other. A part of the exhibition, one of the parts of the exhibition is life support system, an artistic provocation that stages the fundamental role of ecosystem contributions in the economic process. More specifically, this installation that you can see on the screen shows the role of ecosystems in producing food and in sustaining the life on Earth. What you can see here is the growth cycle of wheat under artificial conditions. The impact of sun, wind, air, rain was replaced by a technological infrastructure that you can encounter in many greenhouses everywhere in the world. This is how the artist wanted to show how devaluated is this role of ecosystem in our industrial economic model. The data generated by the installation and displayed in this screen in real time shows the exorbitant difference between the real costs of producing 1 kilogram of wheat, which is more or less 300 euros, and the market price of unprocessed wheat, which is about 15-30 cents. So we are unable to take into account these real costs because economics, Western economics especially, often referred to as orthodox economics or neoliberal economics, has a very specific understanding of values, which cannot recognize intrinsic value of the ecosystems on which all life depends. This is why this value does not simply exist in the standard economic calculations of profits and losses. It is invisible at the accounting level. So to make this value visible, palpable, if you like, critical inputs such as water, light, heat, and nutrients are measured, monitored, and displayed for the public. This is how they want to show the immense scale of ecosystem contributions and provide us with a speculative reference for reconing the work of the biosphere undervalued and overexploited. So on the one hand, this installation life support system and the other elements of this exhibition as well call for a change in the structures of the common economic imagination. And on the other hand, the exhibition opens a societal debate about new economic measures and about what these measures should look like and what they should take into account in terms of environmental and societal well-being. Our main problem today is that our ways of modeling and measuring the world is wrong. So we need new ones. GPD as a standard purely monetary measure of the economic health of a country not only fails to take into account ecological degradation, but also social damages related to this degradation. So we cannot have a healthy economy and continue an excessive exploitation of the ecosystem, which is always related to the exploitation of people. It won't fly on a larger perspective. But it will be really hard to change this situation and to get saved from this situation if we don't change our economic standards. So local grassroots initiatives are super important, but we also need to have a big picture of what is happening to put pressure on politicians and demand public policies that are consistent with the interests of nature and society. So the economy is too important to leave it in the hands of economists. They need to be supported by artists, philosophers, and poets, perhaps, who can work with science. Art and science, poetry and science, philosophy and science are not mutually exclusive, but complementary to each other. Good scientists and good economists know that, and this exhibition shows to what an extent such a work can be valuable and provide us with new ways of imagining the future. Post-growth toolkit is another element of this exhibition I would like to comment on, because it shows what this kind of a broader interscientific, if you like, thinking can bring in practice if only we let our imagination work. This toolkit is a game at the intersection of science and speculative fiction. It encourages the gamers to reshuffle their worldviews and through this to defy the economic growth orthodoxy. The game consists of three elements. First, you have 10 critical objects that our civilization depends on, like concrete, wood, coal, global internet, smartphone, wheat, and so on. Second, you have a game board with the 10 pillars of capitalism, like overproduction, individualism, resource extraction, inequality, globalization, private ownership, proletarianization, short-termism, innovation, and infinite growth. However, here in the middle, you have you also have the wheel of virtues, where counterpoints of these pillars are suggested. So you can ask yourself, yourselves and your friends you play with this game, what would happen if we substituted these counterpoints to the pillars? Regeneration instead of resource extraction, prosperity instead of infinite growth, maintenance instead of innovation, commons instead of private ownership, and territories instead of globalization, and so on. And third, because I need to change the slide. And third, you have cards to think. Each card contains a concept.
Michal, sorry,
yeah.
Nothing changed. So perhaps you have to. We still see the same
Ah, yeah.
Last
Okay.
slide. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Because I forgot to save my slides, unfortunately. And okay, here we go. Can you see the cards?
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So each card contains a concept, and these cards you put these cards on one of the pillars of capitalism to see how we should treat these 10 critical objects in order to change the situation, in order to substitute, in order to imagine what would happen if we substituted these counterpoints to these capitalist pillars. For example, you have a card like low tech, which informs you that the potential of past and often forgotten knowledge and technologies uh, mm, is very important when it comes to designing a sustainable society. You have another card like collapse informatics, which shows that now computing is as cheap and accessible as ever. So it's time to study, design, and develop systems in the abundant present for use in a future of scarcity, right? So these cards encourages us to think how we should change our understanding of computer science and all kinds of artificial intelligence related software in order to meet the ecological constraints and so on. So now let me focus particularly on one of the virtues from this wheel of virtues, which is territory. A beautiful definition of territory was offered by architect and urban planner Alberto Maniaggi. He says in his book titled Le Projet Local in French, in English, this book was translated as Urban Village, so the title is completely different. Maniaggi says, I quote, the territorio is a work of art, arguably the highest that humanity has ever produced. Unlike many artworks, painting, sculpture, or architecture, or technical works produced by modeling inanimate matter, the territorio, is produced through dialogue, a relationship between living entities, the joint evolution of man and nature through the ages of history. So at first glance, we perceive a territory in its purely aesthetic dimension. This is why we feel bad in, for example, I know, devastated landscapes. However, the aesthetic of a territory is related to politics, and it depends on the values we assign to the functions of this territory. For example, a wasteland may be considered an extremely rich ecosystem of urban biodiversity, providing habitat for countless species living in conjunction with an adjacent forest. But a real estate developer will recognize this wasteland as a perfect site for a new gated residential area and will build this area if the city authorities allow for it. So in the name of the same logic of short-sighted profit, the said forest can be sacrificed if we treat this forest as a sawmill, or if we clear it for the construction of an innovative industrial plant. So it is important to value or revalue, if you like, territory and try to develop a territorial approach to the city, and through this, to develop a different take on what is actually meant by urbanization today. Valuing territory does not mean being against industry. Instead, such value advocates for organizing a new industrial world and shifting the focus from the standard of living, as specified by the Standard of Living Index, to the quality of life, which requires different economic measures. Territory exists only to the extent that it becomes an object of care. New ways of inhabiting territory mean moving away from understanding territory as a silent arena for economic life and directing attention to the other qualities of a given territory, landscape or ecosystem. Why? Because these qualities give us a broader understanding of functionality. No? A function from a biological viewpoint is something utterly different from, functionality in urban or purely urban categories. The long-term depreciation of these qualities makes the territory difficult to inhabit and eventually turns against the people who live there. It creates new kinds of misery, exacerbates inequality, and breeds systemic aesthetic deprivation, which leads to the breakdown of social bonds as it weakens the ability to contribute and participate in the production of what we might term as urban spirit. And this territorial view of cities is particularly important for me in relation to Silesia, where I live, and in relation to the metropolitan model of its development that the local authorities are really proud of. Well, the problem with this model of development is that it is inherently expansive. It is, by definition, technocratic and treats territorial qualities more as additions than as a starting point for thinking about conscious urbanity in the context of the global concerns of the Anthropocene. In this model, the territory becomes an area to be occupied, right? To be aggressively exploited and transformed into technical infrastructure, primarily for business activities and investments. Local specificity, natural, cultural, and technical alike, is disappearing under the pressure of the primacy of profit and its constant accumulation regardless of environmental and social costs. Environmental degradation goes hand in hand with social degradation, marginalization of the role of public space, its physical disappearance. Urban forms of life die out and peripheral areas become denser, which is described as the phenomenon of exurbanization. And finally, peripherality becomes the dominant condition, which is paradoxical for most metropolitan residents living outside the center. All in all, globalization literally devours places to live, destroys their territorial tissue, and cuts cities off from their own history. So what we've been trying to do over the last 3 years within this networking ecologically smart territories project was to reshuffle our local imagination in relation to Silesia, especially in order to revalue this, in order to show that this territorial approach to our highly industrialized area might bring new insights and new ideas when it comes to ways of local ways of managing with the global concerns of the Anthropocene. That's why we worked in the framework of what we call contributory research, which involves the practice of many forms of knowledge, which activates processes enabling the production of different forms of knowledge related to a given territory. This is to emphasize the collaboration between researchers, artists, and local actors, from residents and activists to entrepreneurs and local authorities. All this with a very clear intention, a very clear goal, which means to lead to a peaceful transformation of the currently existing macroeconomic model by combining modeling with experimentation, engineering with the humanities, specialized knowledge with everyday knowledge, and to build the foundations, the theoretical foundations for a new macroeconomic model in which the overriding value is knowledge, is the production of knowledge in contributory ways, and all kinds of forms of exchange this knowledge makes possible. This is why we put a special emphasis on building a kind of a network learning territories that can learn from each other, right? In order to produce a different way of understanding what the globalization after globalization really means, and what kind of values we want to assign to this new globalization. Thank you very much for your